Megachurches, once seen as cultural and spiritual beacons, are confronting a subtle but profound shift. Large auditoriums that once overflowed now show empty seats, even as music plays and cameras roll. The spectacle remains, but the energy has changed. Congregants who once filled every row are now staying home or streaming services online. The reasons are not always scandal or mismanagement. Often, it is a quiet reevaluation of what church means in modern life. Attendance alone no longer reflects spiritual vitality, and this realization is transforming American faith in ways that are only beginning to emerge. The allure of the megachurch experience. The modern megachurch was engineered for seamless engagement. Every Sunday, congregants experience polished production, moving cameras, swelling music, giant screens, and orchestrated volunteer guidance. This carefully constructed environment made worship simple, accessible, and immersive. Across the country, over 1,600 megachurches adopted similar formulas. The model solved a problem: how to attract and retain people in a busy world. Short sermons, clear takeaways, and repeatable phrases made spirituality approachable. Growth followed naturally, and the blueprint became the standard. Conferences celebrated its success, and pastors replicated it, marking the rise of the megastage as the dominant church model. The blind spots of success, however, can mask deeper issues. When attendance becomes the primary measure of impact, churches risk prioritizing numbers over transformation. Full seats are often mistaken for spiritual health. While megachurches excelled at attracting crowds, few paused to ask whether members were genuinely growing in faith. Some leaders did. Years before declining attendance became visible, certain churches began questioning whether the experience alone nurtured lasting spirituality. These questions challenged the system's core. It wasn't that megachurches failed. They succeeded in gathering people but struggled to cultivate self-sustaining spiritual growth. Willow Creek's moment of reflection. In 2007, Willow Creek Community Church took a rare introspective step. Known for polished services and growing attendance exceeding 20,000, the church surveyed thousands of members to measure true spiritual transformation. Results revealed a gap. High participation did not equate to deep personal faith. Members attended, served, and joined groups, yet many felt spiritually stagnant. Leaders realized the model excelled at gatherings, but not at building independent spiritual practice. They publicly acknowledged the need for change, emphasizing tools and personal growth over entertainment or spectacle. This quiet revelation foreshadowed questions that would later challenge the entire megachurch system. Pandemic as a catalyst, the closures of 2020 forced megachurches to confront a vulnerability long overlooked. Sanctuaries went dark, stages went silent, and parking lots emptied. Initially thought temporary, the shift accelerated innovation. Online streaming, multiple camera setups, and virtual giving portals emerged almost overnight. Digital attendance surged, yet the return to physical spaces revealed a stark reality. Many congregants did not come back. Entire sections of auditoriums remained empty, highlighting that the pandemic did not destroy megachurches, but revealed their dependence on in-person spectacle. The system that once guaranteed engagement now faced a test it had never fully anticipated. The rise of digital faith technology changed the rules of engagement. Congregants discovered that worship could be streamed from anywhere, eliminating geographic barriers. Sermons once exclusive to megachurches were now widely accessible online. The production advantage that once drew crowds diminished as platforms proliferated. Audiences could access spiritual content from multiple pastors and traditions, often on demand. As a result, physical presence became optional. Megachurches retained influence but no longer held a monopoly on spiritual experiences. The emphasis shifted from building full auditoriums to curating digital content that could reach millions beyond local congregations. Trust and leadership. Challenges. Trust in leaders has become a critical factor for congregants. Several high-profile megachurches experienced moral scandals, resignations, or public criticism, which eroded confidence in centralized leadership. Founder-led systems often struggle with transitions. revealing the fragility of structures dependent on personality. Even pastors previously celebrated for their outreach faced scrutiny over decisions or delays during crises. Trust, once implicit, now shapes attendance decisions. The trend reflects broader societal patterns. Surveys show declining confidence in institutions, particularly among younger generations. Faith itself may persist, but the centralized personality-driven model of the megachurch faces growing instability. Generational shifts in worship. Younger generations increasingly question large institutions while maintaining personal belief. Declining attendance is not synonymous with declining faith. It reflects a preference for autonomy and flexibility. Some turn to smaller congregations, house gatherings, or hybrid communities blending online and in-person participation. Megachurches, once synonymous with scale, may now feel distant or impersonal. As worship becomes more personalized, arenas that once symbolized spiritual authority may seem optional. This generational shift is both a challenge and an opportunity. Faith continues, but its practice is decentralizing, reshaping community structures and expectations around participation and engagement. The politics of faith. Another layer influencing attendance is the intersection of faith and politics. Churches are increasingly seen as political actors, whether by vocal engagement or perceived silence. Members may leave because they disagree with leadership stances, disrupting the traditional broad appeal strategy of megachurches. The model once emphasized neutrality to maintain inclusivity. Crisis situations and cultural debates, however, expose divisions. Congregants now evaluate spiritual spaces not only for religious content, but also for alignment with personal values. This dynamic underscores the fragility of relying solely on spectacle and scale. Relevance is no longer guaranteed by size alone. Declining. Attendance versus persistent belief surveys highlight a striking pattern. While weekly attendance has steadily declined, belief in God remains relatively stable. What has changed is access and perception. Technology provides instant access to teachings worldwide, diminishing the novelty of local megachurch services. Faith is no longer geographically bound. Spiritual content flows freely across platforms. The megachurch advantage of scale is offset by digital ubiquity. Congregants can curate spiritual experiences, exploring diverse voices without leaving home. Physical attendance becomes one of many options rather than a requirement, reshaping how communities engage with faith and redefining the value of the auditorium itself. From gathering place to global platform, the modern megachurch is evolving from a physical gathering to a digital platform. Empty seats no longer signify failure. Influence can extend globally through online streams, clips, and social media. Congregants may be fewer in person, but millions experience sermons remotely. Traditional measures of success, attendance, seating capacity, and local growth are being replaced by reach, engagement, and content impact. The shift is subtle but significant. The church retains spiritual influence while transforming the way it operates. Physical space matters less than it once did, and the model is adapting to a decentralized, digitally connected audience. Reimagining the future megachurches are not necessarily declining, they are mutating. Large auditoriums remain, but influence is increasingly measured online. Smaller congregations, hybrid gatherings, and house-based communities rise quietly. Faith remains vibrant, but the stage has moved. Leadership now requires navigating both physical presence and digital engagement. Churches that embrace this dual model may thrive, while those anchored solely in scale risk losing relevance. What was once a blueprint for growth is now a test of adaptability, trust, and digital literacy. The future of faith may be less about filling seats and more about reaching hearts wherever they are. Conclusion. Influence beyond the seats. 16,000 seats, half empty, but the story is more nuanced. Megachurches have transformed from local gatherings into expansive digital platforms, reaching millions globally. Attendance declines reflect changes in trust, access, and generational preferences rather than a disappearance of faith. The power of influence has shifted from physical presence to virtual reach. Megachurches demonstrate that spiritual engagement can thrive in new formats, though the metrics have changed. As faith decentralizes, the challenge is not survival, but adaptation. Empty rows may hide a broader impact, reminding us that influence cannot always be measured in chairs, but in the hearts and screens it touches.